Today we got a great one, folks. Divine masculine and divine feminine polarity in reality, in electrodynamics, in gender relations, in all of that. And we're going to get in, of course, into the esoterics. I actually have a very interesting presentation for you today. This is Professor Matt. Thank you so much for being here. I want to start this off by saying, first and foremost, that everything I show today is, I think it's going to be very positive for both men and women. And I think a lot of people can pull wonderful information from this video. So please make sure that you like the video, share the video, subscribe, follow, do all the stuff. You know what I mean? We're going to talk about sexuality. We're going to talk about a lot of things, and I'm going to try to keep this video under 30 minutes. So with that out of the way, let's just kind of jump and dive right into it. Here's a Gnostic imagery, which kind of showcases and details the split of polarities within energies. We live in a dualistic world. Your physical body is literally split in half. You have a masculine and feminine side to your psychology, to your being as well. And we're going to kind of get into a lot of that today, maybe even talk about some Christian tropes. But first, let's talk about what divine masculinity and divine femininity is not. So I see a lot of this, and look, I'm a romantic, all right, myself. I'm a romantic. But I see a lot of this stuff, especially this specific example, which is perpetuated a lot of the time by women. And it's like when a goddess meets her king, a magical alchemy between their energy fields start to operate until they merge into one divine being, which is essentially what happens. And the feminine side is very poetic, and it's very beautiful. It's very natural. It's very rooted in nature, right? It is often dramatic. Drama not being like, oh, she's dramatic. Not necessarily in that case. Dramatic as in it is theatrical, as in women like to play, because men and women both play games, all right? Most relationships today, most of the reason why a lot of young kids, Gen Z, now soon to be Gen Alpha, are not getting into relationships is because of the drama, the theatrics. It's too theatrical. So we have a lot of these new age women. They're really into the energy mechanics and the spirituality. We have a lot of new age guys. We have a lot of masculine, feminine ideals that are kind of being promoted right now. But here's the big thing for me. All of the people seem to fall into buckets. The women fall into these buckets where they will just obsess over celebrities, people, even if they're new age, even if they claim to be spiritual. It's like they're obsessed with Taylor Swift. They're obsessed with the two chicks from Wicked. They're obsessed with all these people, and psychologically, women like people and men like things, more so generally speaking. But there's obvious caveats to that. But it's really less about what makes us separate and how we actually come together. So although I love the romance between things like this, it's just over dramatic, and most men don't understand or even appreciate the sentiment of the theatrical drama, right? Children learn by playing, both men and male and female children. Both men and women as they get older, that necessity to play games to learn does not leave us, all right? And now I'm going to show you a couple of clips from the modern age, and you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about in that regard. Let me make sure that my mic is muted here. But this is what I'm going to showcase to you here is a guy named Andrew Wilson. Now, I normally don't really care about this type of political stuff. And you guys know from my videos, I normally don't even bring up videos of other people. This guy's videos are circulating around right now because of an altercation that just happened, which is probably going to permanently damage his career. Now, just being honest, I don't know a lot about this guy at all. I've only seen like maybe 5 to 10 clips since I've been like looking into this like since yesterday. This guy kind of comes off as this like Christian nationalist, right wing, a little chauvinistic type of guy. Now, just case in point, just so you guys are aware, I'm more of a centrist. I grew up liberal, and then I moved to the South and realized things were like way better in the South. But that still doesn't mean that I like fully adopt extreme right wing conservative views. I probably lean more economically conservative and more liberally like social, but like socially liberal, I guess you could say. However, there are extreme caveats to that. I believe that the family unit is incredibly important. Psychology already speaks for itself in that regard, and blah blah blah. You know what? I'm not going to even bother trying to defend any of my political stances. I can tell you personally, I don't believe anything politically like crazy. In fact, I feel like my central balance stance can see both sides and understand why both sides are the way they are, and then I can use the science to kind of prove who's wrong and who's right. I guess you could say I could use the religion, the morals, the psychology, all of that. So I'm gonna just kind of play a small clip here first, and then I'm gonna play another clip, which is the clip that everybody's talking about for the last couple of days, which is going to damage this guy's career apparently, and everybody's like blowing up and talking about it both on the right and the left and yada yada. But the reason I want to bring up these clips is because it's important to kind of study this stuff. So I'm just going to kind of play this without further ado.
Believe that you can name any type of governmental system or any type of anything in which force is not going to be the backer for what the establishment is, period.
What's your point? Like relating back to
my point is
men
that
are the
you're
enforcers?
you're always going to be appealing to men for your rights.
But why do men have to be the enforcers? Like, let's say your force doctrine,
because
yes.
women can't overpower men, only men can.
But weapons exist.
Okay, so I'm just going to pause it there. So this isn't a debate. This guy gets into these debates a lot, and a lot of what he talks about is basically, in this particular example, he's sharing with the woman that men give the rights to the women. And without the men giving the rights to the women wouldn't even have rights at all. Now, you might be able to make that claim historically from the last maybe hundreds of years in the way that we did it recently, I guess. But if you go back in time, you'll actually find that the first societies were actually more matriarchal. And in fact, they're called matriarchal, but they actually weren't. They were more, I would say, a blend. The men had their roles, the women had their roles. And it was a harmony because the women wanted the men and the men wanted the women. It's just natural. Just study animals. Like, sure, you've got the big, huge gorillas, but you also have female gorillas, which are also fairly large, and they keep the males in check. And yes, sometimes the male animals go off and kill the female animals. And yes, sometimes the female animals go off and kill the children animals, the little child animals. You can't exclude crazy animals or people in specific hierarchies. What this guy is trying to claim basically is that women had very little control over what men do, and men were the one that gave them power to be able to do things. Partially true, I suppose you could make that argument for sure. There is some kind of a layer to men having more physical strength than women. But this guy is really, and again, we're going to see this in the next clip, and as to why, this guy has not embraced his divine feminine. He has not embraced what is known as the anima within him, okay, which is that divine feminine energy. He is still operating off of the masculine energy without the feminine, which a lot of people would call toxic masculinity and blah, blah, blah these days. But essentially, the reason why this is important is because it's a balance of sorts. I'm going to get into the science and the quantum mechanics, but I just couldn't help myself with these videos, especially this one, because I was like, wow, I really got to make like some kind of a response or something, my take on this. So I'm going to play this clip. This is the clip where he's crashing out. And I'll just let it speak for itself.
I will never be able to convince you of my worldview.
You won't.
I know. But the reason is not because I'm not a great orator, or I don't make good points, or I haven't said things which should be compelling to a person. But Charlie, I just think honestly you're too stupid to understand them.
Okay, so this was in response to a debate that he had with this woman, who's probably around half his age or so. And you can hear the egoic, response. Whether or not whatever he said prior was correct or not, you will attract more flies with honey rather than vinegar. This is the new age of being controversial for the sake of getting clicks and views. And because people love drama and controversy, just like I mentioned earlier in this video, this is one of the ways of mythological storytelling, right? Like, we learned through myths. Psychologically speaking, we learn better learning through myths rather than if you were to just directly tell somebody. You'll actually teach somebody better through storytelling than if you were to just give them the direct interpretation. Do you know why that is? It is the difference between right and left brain hemisphere. This man is operating purely off of his left brain hemisphere. Facts, figures, numbers, logic. That's all that those types of guys care about. And that is exactly why they struggle with people. Facts, figures, numbers, logic cannot account for the whims of fate. They cannot account for the feminine nature of reality. It cannot account for chaos, right? A great example would be Bitcoin. For years, for over a decade, everybody was like, facts, figures, numbers, logic. Look at Bitcoin. Look at the capita. Look at the market supply. Look at what's happening. Meanwhile, now there's rumors that all of a sudden, drop of the hat, really random, because you can never predict these things, Jeffrey Epstein may have been funding Bitcoin. And if that ends up becoming true, guess what's going to happen to Bitcoin? It's going to fall. And the whole point of this is that just because somebody's operating in that left brain hemisphere, by the way, I'm not defending this woman because I don't even know her, right? That it would be wrong to look at this and say, well, he's an older man, she's a younger woman. He probably has more logic. He sounds like he's an egoic dick and he's just attacking her. So we're going to step up and defend her. Why? Why do people do that? Because we all have the aspect of the underdog built within us as part of the inner alchemical cycle, right? It's ensuring that sacred secretion rises up into the mind. And this is a story that we live within ourselves. So we resonate with underdogs. So when you look at this, you're automatically going to judge and assume that the woman's the underdog because she's younger, she's a woman, she's prettier. And it's just the way that we've been conditioned. So don't do that. I don't know what her points are. I did not watch any of the previous points. So for all I know, she was right and he was wrong. But you can hear it in the tone. You can hear it in the approach. I'm a great orator. And it's not that I couldn't convince you. It's that you're too stupid. And he literally just flat out says that. Okay. So, and he says it calm, right? He's trying to present himself as being stoic. He's trying to present himself as being all put together. Watch what happens. This is the divine feminine nature. Well, maybe I don't know if she's divine feminine, but this is feminine nature coming in to disrupt demonic masculine. Just watch.
So Andrew, can I sell you on my worldview?
Yes.
Your wife has 3 baby daddies and has been married twice before.
And you
you
lick sniz.
Under your religion.
You lick sniz.
What does that
You're
mean?
a dyke. Don't talk about my wife, you stupid bitch. Shut your mouth. Shut your stupid bitch mouth.
Your wife with the 3 baby
What did
daddies?
I just say, dyke?
Your wife with the 3 baby daddies?
I'm sorry, dyke. Is she morally inconsequential in comparison to your ditch licking?
Do the men that you try to...
Do the women that you try
show
to...
your hatred against...
Do the women that you try
convince
to...
them that they shouldn't...
You know, Charlie, did I bring...
Women? Do they know
Charlie,
that
did I bring your family...
So you can go ahead and watch the rest of that clip yourself. It's very easy to find. Easily triggered. Okay, the whole reason why he's easily triggered is because he is, promoting himself as a Christian conservative right wing, nationalism, traditional values, all that stuff, which is fine. That is one of the sides of the argument that has to be put on the table. Why? Because we've survived for thousands of years, and unfortunately, progressive politics wants to basically do away with everything from the past, and you just can't do that. So a lot of champions for traditional values step up and they try to defend their positions. However, this guy is not a champion of traditional values, exactly what this woman is pointing out, who I guess is a lesbian. I don't know. He said some pretty not nice words to her. But, it's also not nice of her to point out that she's basically calling his wife a whore, I guess is the best way to put that. There's no other way to put it because that's exactly what it is. So this is a very dramatic episode of Psycosmos, clearly, because we're getting into the politics of this now. Why is this important? Why did that happen? Well, again, he's not adopting his divine feminine nature. If he was actually okay with that fact, number one, he wouldn't have hidden it, because the whole reason why this is a big deal is because people feel like he hid that information from his fan base. His fan base is probably a bunch of young, right-wing, conservative guys that are hyped up on their Jamba Juice, and the lesbian chick, or whoever he was debating, probably has the opposite. It's probably a bunch of liberal, left-leaning, purple hair, feministy girls who are, oh my God, yeah, women's rights are like the most important issue in 2025 when there's like literally a Holocaust going on in another country. It is between those two opposing sides. Okay, I personally, this is just Matt's take, I think that they both sound fucking stupid. That's just me. Okay, and the reason why they sound stupid is because they're coming at it from extremes. And I always talk about this. You're never going to sound smart if you're coming at it from extremes. You're going to sound smart to dumb people if you come at things from extremes. And that's exactly why so much information is so popularized with stupid people, because they want the drama, because the drama helps them search for meaning and discover truth. All right. So It's just a showcasing of not doing enough of the inner work. But people like that, they live in controversy, so they understand how to make things controversial. And people love to watch the train crash. Okay, everybody watches these people. This is why I don't get a lot of followers. It's because I'm not controversial enough. It's because I'm like, hey guys, let's all love each other and promote balance and harmony. And like, I'm going to teach you a bunch of like fascinating things. You would think that I would be on the cover of like New York Times Magazine or something. It's like, wow, like, it's not that it's about me. It's just the information being brought forth. You would think that somebody who's talking about this stuff would be promoted to the forefront. But no, it's never that. It's always going to be slop. It's going to be slop and garbage, and it's because we accept it. And I mean, I've been stuck there, right? Instead of liking and sharing and promoting my favorite YouTubers stuff, I will, well, I don't do this a lot, but like I've been there. I've scrolling for like an hour on TikTok mindlessly, right? If I were to show you my TikTok usage, it's probably like, I don't know, maybe 4 hours a week. I would assume that's probably about fair. 4 hours a week. I know that's probably unheard of. A lot of other people are way deeper in the sticks of using social media all the time. But the whole point of me showing those clips is, one, because it adds to the controversy. Two, it's current events, it's relevant. And three, because it's a great example of pointing out people who are not matching and meeting with their inner union of masculine and feminine ideals. If that guy did not have that bother him, he wouldn't have blown up. And you could say he was defending his wife, but that's not what it was. If you're defending your wife, you can be calm in the fact that it's like, okay, well, she's just lying, so I can easily swat it away. It's the fact that it was true. And it was the fact that it was something that was damaging to his image and his reputation, because he's trying to promote probably, again, traditional values, get married, then have children. And she's got 3 different children with 3 different fathers, and he's married to her. That in his community's worldview would make him look like a weak man. Okay, so it kind of tarnishes his reputation. It tarnishes his image. But we call this karma, because he's going on to these podcasts basically saying, you're dumb, you're stupid, you don't know what you're talking about. He's a walking embodiment of the opposite. He really is like showcasing himself as somebody who falls under the exact same thing that he's fighting. He's sitting to these young women and he's saying, you're dumb, you're stupid, you don't know what you're talking about. And she just, in one fell swoop, was like, yeah, I think you're dumb, you're stupid, and you don't know what you're talking about. You're talking about how women need to be chaste and they need to be, put in the closet, so to speak, blah, blah, blah. Because I have seen some other clips where basically that guy has said, all these women today, all these young women today are whores and they're just whoring themselves out. It's interesting, right? Like everybody gets locked in. They're like, oh, I love hearing about sex. I love hearing about this and that and this and that. But guys, just because, and this is really a big takeaway from this video, just because it's controversial and it's dramatic and it's theatrical doesn't mean it deserves your attention. Honestly, a lot of this stuff is slop. And I've never really watched that guy's videos. I did it for this video. I watched about 10 clips, and I'm hopefully never going to watch any more of that guy's content ever again, because it's slop. You can figure out very, very quickly what you're learning from other people and what you're not. So let's get into the gender specific stuff, because I've got about 12 minutes left, but I can get through all this. So masculine and feminine is a balance, okay? You have 2 halves of your brain, which I can showcase here. You have 2 halves of your brain, left and right. I know a lot of scientific nerds are trying to basically say, that's not true. They're actually interlinked. They are interlinked, but they operate differently for both men and women. Left brain hemisphere is all about the logistics, and the right brain hemisphere is all about the imaginative, okay? One is logical and one is spiritual. Now, if you're an atheist, or if you're somebody who's like, well, logic obviously is more important than spirit, then you're going to be rooted in that left brain, and you're never going to awaken into the right brain. This is why a lot of nerds, and when I say nerds, I really mean like a lot of like incels, guys that spend all their day on the computer playing video games and stuff like that. This is why they can't get girlfriends. That's why they can't even talk to women. This is why a lot of our dating scenes are going down. However, on the flip side, if you're too right brain, you're delusional. And this is exactly what's happening with the women. They're choosing to tap into their emotions, and they're not understanding the logistics of, hey, if I decide to start a movement like the 4B movement in Korea, which basically is a bunch of women who are young, in their teens and 20s, who are saying, we're opting out of relationships, we're having no sex, and we're not going to have children. Okay, you're emotional because you want to take out your upset nature out on every man, which means that you're only going to hurt yourself. It's only going to boomerang back and hurt you. But you're also not foreseeing the issue that this is going to create for your society. If you don't have children and you get older, who's going to take care of you, right? This is a very, like, again, this is why that guys like that guy that blew up called these young girls stupid and naive. It's because they're operating from an emotional center. However, this is also an intuitive one. If in her intuition she's like, well, if we just stop sleeping with men, they won't be able to get it. It's like, no, they'll find another woman who wants it. Like, that's that, you know. But the intuition is a very important key aspect, which is something that men lack. Male brains operate on a function of connecting longitudinally. Okay, they connect long ways within the brain. Okay, so they're able to recall tons of facts and data. You know, that's why, like, you'll get the guys and they'll be like, yeah, I remember 1989, Jamar Jackson threw the touchdown. It was the end of the fourth quarter, and I was sitting at the edge of my seat drinking my 7th beer, and it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's like they'll remember all these details that are so useless. Like, a lot of the data itself is useless, whereas the women often will, you know, and a lot of men know this too. They'll come home from a day at work, or they'll, you know, the man will come home from a day at work, and the woman is just going to want to process by talking or sharing or communicating about people. It's always about people, whether it's, oh, you know, Becky did this, or you should have seen my sister's kid, my nephew, my niece, blah, blah, blah. They'll always talk about the people. Now, both of these are important. Female brains work cross hemispherically. Okay, so what you'll notice, and we're going to show this in quantum mechanics as well, men work longwise. Okay, they work with length, and women work with space. Okay, they work with round. This is also the not only the shape of the brain. It is like an almond. It is like a torus field. But it is also the it's a long and it's a line and it's a circle. So exactly right. Consciousness, right? So you have yang and yin. If you were to look at the yin yang, right? The yang is the solar masculine. Okay. Now, masculinity is not aggressive. That's not what masculinity is about. It can be aggressive when it comes to getting shit done. But but in terms of people, the aggressiveness comes out when things need to be corrected, right? And a man's subjective reality of what needs to be corrected is exactly that, subjective. Dominant is one way, and then feminine nature is submissive. Now, that doesn't mean lesser, though. And that's the problem that a lot of people have, is they think that submission means lesser. Guess what? If you're a man, your whole job is to submit to God. You've got to be the husbandly, proper man, which means ultimately you have to understand the feminine aspect of submission to your savior. You have to understand that submission to God. You want to try to play God, you're going to lose. You will always be cucked by God, essentially, right? But that's not how men see it. They'll say, no, I have a loving relationship with my father. That's exactly what it is. So you already understand submissive nature then, and you can understand that it's not a negative consequence. It's not a negative thing. But men want the power fantasy, and that's okay. You know, a lot of men are healing through, you know, their childhood and stuff like that. But the power fantasy is a lie. All right, there is no such thing as power. Power is an archetype that barely even exists, and because the only power and control that you really have is over yourself. You can have money, you can pretend to have power, you can pretend to be the ruler of a nation. We all die, we all go to the same places after death, and we don't get to bring any of our money or any of our awards and trophies and accolades with us afterwards. What we do get to bring is our soul, and if our soul can unionize and harmonize with, you know, itself and also with a partner that genuinely loves us, that is the beauty of creation itself. That is how the universe became to be. So everything at the end of the day, as you always know, I'm going to bring it back to this, toroidal fields. What is a toroidal field? It's electromagnetic dynamics, electrodynamics. Okay, so basically you have electricity and magnetism. All right, and within that they operate in very similar and also different ways. Electric fields create magnetic fields, and magnetic fields create electric fields. And when both of them are together, they create an electromagnetic field. A third force is created, which is the Z force. And the Z force is the Z axis of like expansion. Okay, so essentially, one field goes one way, one field goes another way, and then they're able to expand and build upon something with like real in the physical world. And this is how we operate in a toroidal function. We operate with a toroidal field, which, as you can see, is a circle and a line. Okay, so just keep that in mind, because we're also going to talk about Planck's scale. At the smallest unit of measurement, you have Planck's, ones and zeros, open and closed loops of Planck's. The ones are the masculine. They are the ones that are the interconnectors. And the closed loops, the zeros, are the feminine. They're the ones that hold the fabric of reality together. So one outstretches to continue prospering, right? The ones outstretch like a penis getting erect, like the man leaving the home to go shake hands with other men, to go gain information and gain land and wisdom and titles and kingdoms. And the woman, the zero, is the one that stays at home and makes sure what's already been built stays a reality. So it's like the ones are the ones that are outstretching to go out and gain more access to resources and information. And the zeros are the ones that take and harness that information and keep and sustain it, which is a very important aspect of life. And both of these are required. Neither one is more important than the other. Now, when you understand these properties and these attributes and mechanisms on the deepest levels, quantum mechanics speaking, then you can understand how to manipulate your own psychology so you can become the best version of yourself. This is where we get into the anima and animus. When animus and anima meet, the animus draws his sword of power. Animus is the masculine force within women. And the anima rejects her poison of illusion and seduction. In other words, okay, the anima, all right, because this is a really good quote. I'm going to break it down in a second. I want this to kind of be a head scratcher for you for a little bit. Anima is the inner feminine side of a man. All right, this is what this dude lacks. All right, he lacks the anima, pretty harshly, I would say. Unconscious mind, life experience. Eros in the man, identification with the actual mother of the man, the internal image of woman, loyalty, nurturing, creativity, and sacrifice. So everything, and this is actually a big Kabbalistic thing, okay? And this is like a mind blower. Men are given woman's brains, and women are given men's brains because it's an inversion. So you're living in a masculine body with a feminine mind. You're living in a feminine body with a masculine mind. What does that mean? Like, how is that even possible? Are you calling me a girl? No, I'm not calling you a girl. What this means is men are focused on things like their fertility in regards to creating a lineage, okay? So sex in regards to creating a lineage. But women are the ones who are the rulers and gatekeepers of sex. Women, through hypergamy and a lot of other concepts, strive for resources, which they use men for. Maybe use is a little bit of a dramatic word, but they do. And a lot of women do this. And men are the gatekeepers of resources, right? So each one has the ability to gain something, and each one wants it from the other person. So women are focused on people because people can get them things, and men are focused on things because things can get them people. So so women have evolved to be better psychologically at manipulating people to get the things that they want, and men have been better at manipulating themselves to work hard to get things so that they can get the people that they want. That's how it works. So a man will go and get a good job to make money so he can get a trophy wife. Or a woman will learn how to be, she'll work on her physical appearance so she can magnetize the men in so that she can get whatever she wants from the marriage, being luxury and comfort. And this is something that is obviously not for everybody and is not what everybody wants, but this is what's been peddled in society. This is what's been peddled through the psychology of human beings. And yes, of course, conditioning always comes into play. I'm already getting close to over on time. This will probably be another 5 or 10 minutes, but sure, society has a big part in that. But at the end of the day, guys, the real true reality is that we do this ourselves. Like, yeah, okay, we could talk about Rockefellers, Rothschilds, Tavistock Institute. We could talk tons about how we've been conditioned for the last few hundreds of years. But that doesn't escape the fact that this is the exact same thing we see in medieval artworks and literature, like fucking William Shakespeare. All right, these are things that are really deeply built into us, and both sides are manipulating the other. Men are manipulating to keep the women happy so that they can have families, so that they can pass on their lineage. And the reason they need to do that is because that is a core rooted thing for men to not feel worthless. And then what ends up happening as they evolve is that the men realize, oh, I actually genuinely do like the people that are in my life, and I actually can trust them. Because when men start out, they find out at a very young age that they can trust things more than people. They can trust processes, they can trust themselves more than anybody else. And for women, it's really the opposite. Women believe they can trust other people, but then they discover that their family is really the only one that they can truly trust, and it's the family that they have to build themselves. And they actually really like using the things not for luxury and comfort, but for prosperity of the family. And of course, luxury and comfort is a big thing for women, but that's just part of the whole shtick. But women are truly the ones that are at the center point of this, because they are the ones in the middle between the fathers and the children. Women are the heart of the home, and women are the manifestors. So for the men specifically, because we're getting a little bit off topic here, the anima is the inner feminine side of the male. All right. So in other words, this is him adopting his right brain hemisphere. For the woman, okay, in the anima, right? Feminine archetype in men. Woman from within. Okay. So it's, well, I don't know about this thing here. A lot of men are awakening into this, and we're showcasing this in different ways. What does makeup and beauty have to deal with divine feminine nature? Divinely feminine mother is going to wake up rolling out of bed. Her hair is going to be a mess. She's going to have no makeup on. And divine feminine to me means somebody who can still look like a train wreck and still be beautiful by taking care of her babies and her family. That is nurturing. It's not about beauty standards. It's not about fashion. For men, it's not about working out. It's not about militant, consistency. Post the same thing every day. Do the same thing every day. That will lead you to not evolving. If you're just focused on, I'm going to do the same thing every day, you as a man will not evolve. You're not adopting your anima. Anima is about evolution. The feminine nature of mankind is about evolution. Women are the gatekeepers of sex in the lineage. They are the ones that are imbued with the divine intuitive power to decipher which genes get passed on to the next generation. Men are not that. The man gets to decide that for himself by being active, by being physically, mentally, and spiritually in line. Then he can awaken into his ultimate truth for himself, and then he can find a woman who's going to be able to pass his genetics on. So, that is basically the way that it's kind of orchestrated. So, the anima-animus concept, right? Animus is the masculine in the woman, opposite gender qualities and attributes of the psyche. It represents your true self. Okay. How does that work? Because if you're born a man, you have to learn the female side. And so men look for it externally through a woman, and women do that also externally through a man, and vice versa, because it's easier to try to find it by the outside. And yes, we have to have external examples a little bit to learn, right? Children need that too. But it's an internal battle. It's an internal struggle. So more women are choosing to go to sports games. More women are choosing to drink beer and party and do all these things that were generally considered very masculine. And men are choosing to stay at home, work from home, do things play games, right? Video gaming and all this stuff. They're trying to use the outside world to figure out the inside world. And for each individual, it's going to be different as to how much it's working. Animus for the female. In woman, the compensating figure is of a masculine character and can therefore appropriately be termed the animus. There are naturally fields of experience in a man which for woman are still wrapped in the shadows of non-differentiation, chiefly things in which she has no interest, the wide realms of commerce, politics, technology, and science. That is a bold statement from Jung to say here at the bottom. It's her her ability, non-differentiation. Basically what he's saying is exactly what I said, actually. Women go and explore things like money, politics, technology, and science, which are normally things that they don't care about because they're things. They have very little to do with actual people. By politics, he doesn't mean this garbage show of what politics are today. He means actually going and meeting and talking about the logistical, logical things about it. Men enjoy that, women don't. So women have to learn more and men have to open their heart more in order to get this across, because men were always associated with the mind and women were associated with the heart. That doesn't mean that women are not smart, and that doesn't mean that men are heartless. Okay, it means that those are the barriers that are blocking, because men live in their heads and women live in their bodies, and it just makes sense. We've been genetically engineered, okay, evolutionarily conditioned to have to get up in the morning, get over however we feel, use our brains to say, gotta work, and start the day. Women, on the other hand, feel their body and say, this is kind of what I'm feeling today, because they have other things going on bodily wise. And men will use their brains to achieve wealth and success to attract a woman. Women will use their bodies to attract a man. It's the way, again, I'm not saying that's everybody. I'm not saying that's even the way that it should be. It is the way that it is. And that even in this new age, in this new era, where for 100 years we've given women all the rights, we're still seeing the exact same psychology play out. And then you get these dummies who sit on these podcasts and they argue and they conversate and they go back and forth about stupid, nonsensical crap, because it's a bunch of young kids watching it, because it's the youth learning, and they're learning from these guys when really they should be learning from Psycosmos. So, you should be sharing all this information with your friends and family. But just, putting that aside, just joking, but also not joking. So the anima animus, this is basically how it works. All right. Think of it like this. I'm a man, so I project a masculine image externally, but internally there's also a feminine aspect of me. And if I repress that, then you'll see that come out in a feminine way. How many of you guys are men, and how many of you have ever pissed off your girlfriend or your wife? Does she not act the way that this guy's acting? Where he's talking over her, he's flustered, he's pissed off, he's agitated. For the women, whenever you piss off your man, okay, do they not act like this stoic, like unbothered, like leave me alone, I don't want to talk about it kind of thing, right? And of course, it's all different, and it's going to be spectrally different for each individual person and how much they've incorporated their masculine or feminine energies. Some women are very masculine, and even though they look very feminine, they're very pretty, their soul's expression, their shadow takes over and it comes out as masculine. They're very like CEO, corporate style, unemotional, right? And then you've got the opposite counterpoint, which is the guy that's like too emotional, and he's always trying to like take care of her and fawn after her and blah, blah, blah. And it just doesn't work. And a lot of the times those types of relationships fizzle out. If both parties, this is my point, if both parties understand their shadow and incorporate the darker aspects of their shadow into their space, then it all becomes clear, right? So like, here's a perfect example. When men don't have their shadow incorporated, they freak out very emotionally, which causes a lot of issues, especially with aggression and like domestic violence. It's very similar to how this guy was freaking out. I'm Mr. Stoic, I'm Mr. Christian right-wing guy, blah, blah, blah. But then he freaks out emotionally. He gets emotional. He's not even making sense. There was a part in this video where he's just repeating the words that she's saying, and he's not even listening to what she's saying at all, which is not what he's normally like. He got overly emotional because he doesn't understand his emotional nature. For women, they'll shut down. They'll shut down and block out emotion sometimes if they don't have their shadow integrated well. And it will be this like very silent, very observable, like, I'm going to get my way, I'm going to leave him, I'm going to go cheat, hypergamy type of thing. And it becomes this masculine thing. And what's funny is like for many men, when I was born in the 90s, early 90s, when I grew up, it was always, especially from my mother who cheated on my father. It was always from, the female perspective of men are pigs. All they want is sex. Us women, we're just like perfect and we never want sex, but it's the men's fault. They're the ones that always want the sex. And that's how I grew up. And that's what I believed until I was like 13, and then I actually started talking to girls. But then, my mom, it turns out was the one who was cheating, and my dad was cheating too. but they were like cheating on each other, and it was her guilt as to why she was always saying stuff like that. But my father was still a pig, and my mother was also a pig. They were both pigs. But my mom acted like a man, and my dad acted like a pussy. But when times were really tough, that's basically what would happen. My mom would act like a man, and she would be like, I'm assuming control. I'm domineering over you. And that's a defense mechanism to say, I'm going to roar like a lion when I'm really a puppy. And I'm going to make you do the things that I want you to do, because it's her masculine projection taking over to defend herself. My father would get so emotional that he would beat the shit out of me. And that's just what happened. Like tons of time. I mean, I got physically abused a lot from 5 to 11 years old. From 5 to 11 was horrible for me. And it was the most physical abuse that I had experienced in my life, where basically, coming home from school or spending a weekend at home was a gamble, right? I was rolling the dice. And if I rolled snake eyes, I was hugging the pillow all night crying. So that's basically what would happen. But I remember my dad's freakouts. They weren't like a gladiator, At least it could have been like that, It could have been like, you are a disappointment to me, and you'll never grow up to be a man, and go do 5,000 push-ups and something like that. I probably would have preferred that. Instead, it was my dad like freaking out, like you would assume like a hysterical, crazy woman would freak out. And it was screaming and yelling and, fear and crying. And like, it was just weird. And a lot of physical abuse. It was just weird, And so it was always something that I thought about, and I didn't understand it until I understood the concept of anima animus, right? Men who perform heinous acts like sexual assault and violence against people in general, they don't and these guys, the gym bros, right, overcompensating, blah blah blah. And then what happens, they end up taking complete all of their emotional energy out on whoever's in the vicinity. And that's because they're unhealed. And then we all know the women who are batshit crazy, who are always like, I'm going to ruin your life, I'm going to destroy your reputation, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to lie, right, I'm going to lie about you. That is a masculine, I need to dominate this person projection. So one is using emotion and one is using logic, right? It's very scary when a woman gets so angry at you that she's trying to destroy your life. That is where the logic takes over, and she's like, I am going to say this, I'm going to speak this, blah, blah, blah. And both of them use the powers that they have. The men will use their strength, the women will use their voice, right? And the women will cry, right? And they'll make excuses, and the men will use their fists. And both of them are liars, basically, at the end of the day. So, long story short, that's the end of the video. Basically, just to kind of close out, the left and right brain hemisphere, the shadow, all of these parts are holistic in our understanding of the divine polarity between divine masculine and divine feminine. Now, let's say you're trying to learn more about this. Come join my school. Why? Because I have tons of new courses available, but I also have a relationship healing course, and I also have a divine sexuality masterclass. And this one goes into some beautiful archetypes. It goes into a lot of deep sacred symbolism, a lot of the science of what it means, science of energy, the science of electromagnetism, how men and women really think and operate. So if you've been having issues with that, come check that out, because that's a great course. And if you're more on the spiritual side, where you're just trying to explore this just for yourself, check out my AI tool. People are signing up, they're loving this, and I'm actually going to come out with a big update today. So it's going to have tons of new information, tons of more in-depth stuff. Just on the back end, I updated tons of things. I actually should show you guys that. I'll show it to you tomorrow when I make tomorrow's video. But as always, I love you guys. Make sure you spread the video around, comment, like, everything else, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video. Take care, guys.